Okay, Math 90, this is section 2.3a, part 2, the second half of 2.3, part A. So we were talking about when Hawks gives you an equation, and they'll say is a certain value a solution. And I did one example in the prior video. When I was doing the homework, I noticed that they had some equations with absolute values, so I wanted to do a couple of those to make sure you're okay with that. So they're asking us in this one, is the absolute value of x minus the absolute value of 3 equal 25? For that equation, is 28 a solution? So what we did in the last problem was we took the 28, or we took the number, the value they gave us, and we plugged it in for the x, and we worked it out, and we saw if both sides come out to be equal. So we're going to do that again, and let's see if this is going to work out. So I'm just plugging in the 28. Does that come out to be 25? So here's my absolute value of 28 minus my absolute value of 3. Does that equal 25? Are both sides coming out equal? So do we recall absolute value? What's the absolute value of 28? Remember, it's the distance from 0. So how am I getting from 0 to 28? Well, it's just 28. And what's the absolute value of 3? Well, that's just 3. And what's 28 minus 3? Well, that is 25. So, yes, this does work. It's true. So both sides are equal to 25. It's true. 28 is a solution. Okay, let's look at one more of those. Here's an equation. For 42 plus the absolute value of x equals negative 30 is negative 72 a solution? Okay, so we're going to take that negative 72, plug it in here for x, and see if both sides come out to be equal. So let's see. Plug that in. So 42 plus the absolute value of negative 72, does that equal out to negative 30? Well, what's the absolute value of negative 30? What's the absolute value of negative 72? How many, if you're thinking of the number line, how many units am I from 0 to negative 72? How many jumps or how many units am I going? Well, I'm going 72, so 42 plus 72, does that get me to negative 30? Well, 42 and 72, let's see what that gives me. That gives me 114. So I got 114 on this side, and I've got negative 30 on that side, and these two are not equal. So this is no, not true. So negative 72 is not a solution. Okay, let's start. I hope those are okay. Let's start solving some of these. They're going to ask you to solve. So here's an example of one. It'll say something like solve for n. So this is the variable, right? I want to know, what's n going to be? What value is n going to be to make this true? Okay? And remember, we're looking over here, we're subtracting or minusing a 15. What's the opposite of doing that? What's the opposite of subtracting 15? Well, adding 15. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other, because there's an equal there, and I need to equal it out. So I've got a minus 15 and a plus 15, and these are 0. These cancel out. This n comes down, and what's 22 and 15? So n is 37. 37, we say in math, is the solution. So n equals 37. You don't need to write 37 as the solution on a test or quiz, but I would like you to show your work and put that n equals 37. So I know you know that n equals that value. Okay, let's look at another one. Let's solve for b. Okay, so b plus 17 equals negative 22. Okay, so I want to know, what does b equal? So I have a plus 17. What's the opposite of adding 17? Opposite of adding 17 is subtracting 17. Whoops, excuse me, wrong color. So I want to subtract 17. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other, because I want to get to where I can see what b is, what value b is. So 17 minus 17, these cancel out. Bring your b down. And I've got two negatives here. I've got a negative 22 and a negative 17. So when they're both negative, like that, I'm just going to throw them all in the same pile, add them all up. I'm going to add negative 22 and negative 17. And so b equals a negative 39. Now let's do a check on this. Let's check this. We didn't check the one up above, but let's check this one. Okay, so I'm going to put negative 39 in for b, and I'm going to add 17, and I'm going to see if that gets me to a negative 22. Okay, well, remember, when I have a negative and a positive and I'm adding them together, I'm really subtracting them, right? So let me rewrite this. I'm going to say I'm really subtracting them, because I don't want this to be too confusing. So we're going to subtract them, and remember, the sign goes with whoever has more. So negative 39 has more negatives than positive 17 has positives. So my answer is going to be a negative. So 39 minus 17 is 22. And it is a negative 22 because when we subtract, we see that there's more negatives with the 39. So the sign of negative goes with the 22. So both these sides are coming out equal. So this checks, so we know we're right. Now, let me do one more, and let me do a decimal, because they threw some decimals in on the Hawks homework. So let me do one more that's a decimal. So let's solve for y this time. And let's do a decimal. So whoops, this is a y, sorry, y minus 3.4 equals 2.5. Sorry about this mistake here. So I want to find out what value y is. I want to find the solution. So I have a minus 3.4. I'm subtracting 3.4. What can I do? What's the opposite of subtracting 3.4? Well, I want to add 3.4. And what I do to one side, I've got to do to the other. Okay, so these 3.4s drop out. My y comes down. I'm going to add these two together. So what would my y, or what would my solution be? I am getting, and I hope you are too, 5.9. So y equals 5.9. If you want to check it, you can pause and plug in 5.9 in for y, subtract 3.4, and see if you get 2.5. And if both sides equal 2.5, you know you are right. So that is all for 2.3a. Next video will be 2.3b with more solving.